Anna Glavinsky on TRE in the afternoon.
So have you ever dreamed of having a bigger kitchen? Well, if you have, maybe you want to think twice about that because, stop, pause, it might not necessarily make you happy. Maybe that's just a big fat lie that you are telling yourself. That's exactly what our next guest is going to be breaking down for us. Kate Strickler, very well known on social media, and she's also put pen to paper with a brand new book, I Just Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen, and other lies I think will make me happy. Good afternoon, Kate. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with the obvious one, the inspiration behind writing this book. Where does it come from? Why did you feel like it needed to be written?
Yeah, so I've run a blog and Instagram for almost a decade now, and I just started to notice that every time I would share anything like personal online, especially in the area of like discontentment or something that I was struggling with, I would get hundreds, sometimes thousands of messages of women just saying like, wow, I didn't know you felt that way. I feel that way. It's good to know I'm not the only person, or me too was just this common refrain. And I felt like I had this inside look at how many other people are feeling the same things that I was feeling. And so I really wanted to have a place where if I wrote them, other people would hopefully get to read them and just, again, feel like they're not alone, that tons of other people feel this way too.
And so, starting with the title of the book, wishing you had a bigger kitchen, was that a specific example that you wrote about online before putting it in the book? Or was it more sort of an abstract concept?
It's funny because I do a ton of cooking. And so truly for me, so often I am quite literally like, I just wish I had a bigger kitchen. Like I don't have a big kitchen island. I don't have ample storage in my kitchen, but I actually think that majority of people are working in like pretty normal sized functional kitchens, not these like grandiose kitchens that you see in magazines or online. But that's what you see. And you're like, oh, if I had that, then I would cook more. My family would be happier. Everything would be better in my life. So it was very literal for me that I do wish I had a bigger kitchen, but also I feel like the kitchen stands for this thing of like, oh, we see this clean kitchen and we think like, oh, her life is put together. She is probably happier than I am. She has a better life, and her kitchen is just like one symbol of how much better her life probably is than mine. Like that's a story I think we tell ourselves.
So that's, we're going to go into the book a little bit more again. So we'll bounce back to that in a sec. But let's just get to know you a little bit more and your background and the trajectory that got you to here where you are. You're sort of what's known these days as an influencer. Got that job online, writing blogs, posting things on social media. How did you end up in that role? Where did it all start?
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, I was cooking a lot because my son it was my firstborn child. I now have 4. And he was napping twice a day. And so I just found myself at home a lot and just really in desperate need of some sort of creative outlet. So I would cook and then I would post photos of the recipes that I was cooking. So this was back when Instagram was just like a photo. There was no Instagram stories. Like I would post one photo and I would be like, here is the casserole that I cooked. And I would kind of like explain in the caption what the casserole was. So I never dreamed of it going anywhere. It was really just a place for me to feel like I was getting to use my brain and do something fun. And then very slowly, just over the last 10 years, it's funny because it's morphed in a lot of ways. The recipes have gotten way more basic. Every time I've added a child, I feel like the recipes are going down a notch.
And today's recipe is milk.
Yes, exactly. And so it really was just this place and then as I started to have kids, I started to share a little bit more like, here's what's working for us. Here's how like some things I'm thinking about in motherhood. And then also in our home, it was a lot of like, here's how I'm making my house work for me in this season with young kids. And, since starting it, I've lived in 3, we lived in a rental apartment, then we lived in a rental house, and now we live in a house. And so just making each of those spaces work for our like growing family and figuring out like how to have systems in place that would help us thrive in whatever the different setting we were living in was. And I would just share those online. And I think people really appreciated seeing it and hearing about it. and I wrote a lot. It was kind of back again with old school Instagram, where under that like one photo, you could kind of write for a while. There was no reels, like nobody was making videos at the time. And so I really enjoyed the writing piece, and that's something I've really kept up. And so eventually I just was like, man, I'd love to have something tangible that's outside of Instagram, outside of the internet, that is something like you can hold in your hands and take a little bit more time to read.
Yeah, so that getting words down felt really important to you. But when you were starting to post those photos and it was all growing, was there a point where you realised that this was no longer just a hobby, no longer your own just personal creative outlook, and it was becoming more of a job?
Yes. One, it just started to take more time, like quite literally. It was like, okay, this is taking time. And then after my third child was born, I think is when it really started to gain a lot of traction in terms of like, I was gaining more and more followers. And then I was starting to get opportunities to do brand advertisements, and just having a lot more eyes on my page. And so that was probably like 2019 is when I was like, okay, this is like really becoming something. And I started to give more time to it, would find childcare in order to like devote time to it. So that was like 7 years ago at this point. But it took 3 years, I think, of just, again, really believing like this is just something casual I do for fun. And then kind of being like, okay, I think this is actually something.
Did things change when you started to realize that this is something? Was there more pressure on your shoulders? Did it feel less creative, or did it actually feel more creative for you? You know, that personal thing that you wanted to put out there?
Probably both, and probably like anything. There are times when you love to cook. You're like, oh, I have this recipe, I want to make it, I'm so excited. And then other times you're like, I just really wish I didn't have to cook right now, and I've got to put something on the table. So, you know, some days was like, this is so fun. I feel very energized. I have something great I want to share. And other days like, oh, golly, I feel very depleted, but this is where I give my time. And so it did take a long time, probably longer than it should have, for me to really get around the fact that like, okay, this is not only a creative outlet, this is now a job. And there are expectations, especially in working with brands, that, you know, there's true like, okay, I'm working with this company, and so I need to create a reel, and there's a deadline for when that needs to get turned in, you know, like actual expectations around it.
Yeah. And then do you remember when you first sort of shared something a little bit more personal that people really resonated with? Just like this one, was there one post that really...
I know that there was posts before this one, but after my fourth child was born, she was just my most difficult baby. And I think I really believed like, oh, fourth child, this is going to be a walk in the park. I know what I'm doing. You know, everyone says like, oh, they're just going to be so easy. And I shared, this was not easy, and I am not enjoying this phase. Like there's a phrase that babies don't keep. And it's kind of a phrase that people say to have you like soak up motherhood, like, oh, babies don't keep. But I shared it and I was like, babies don't keep. And I've got to be honest, I'm pretty grateful right now that they don't. Like, I'm pretty ready to be out of this. And it was almost like I gave a lot of women permission that were like, oh my gosh, I'm not loving the baby phase either. I'm having a really hard time postpartum. And so I definitely in that just saw like, wow, sometimes people just really need to see that you're not loving something, and it's okay to not love a certain phase of whatever is going on in your life, that like there's permission there.
And then, so how did it go from that? You know, it's a really important thing that you're sharing, actually, something that I'm sure lots of women will go through, to the book, I Just Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen. I'm not talking physically about the book. I'm talking more, you know, conceptually talking about these topics where, you know, people want to attain something and you realize that people are feeling that way.
Yeah. Well, at first I really didn't feel like I had the permission maybe to write, because I'm not writing from this place of any sort of like deep tragedy. You know, I'm not, but the more that I talked to women, and then also talking with my book agent, it really started to show to me that most people are actually living like pretty great lives. Like there are definitely people that have like very difficult things going on in life, but so many people are living like pretty great lives, but they're just kind of always under this like cloud of discontentment of, oh, if I just like looked better, or if my husband were more thoughtful, or if we just had a little more money, just whatever it was. And so I really started to think, because that's where I was. It was like, man, if I were to pull back, I have an incredible life. I would never trade places with anyone. And yet, why do I keep having these like big feelings of discontentment? And so I started, again, because I was online, I could see tons of other women in that same boat. And so that's where it really started to formulate into like, I really think there's something here. And I think that I have enough categories that I've struggled through that I could really write about. And so once I had kind of the working premise, I started to look at my own life and, I wish I had control. I just wish that had gone better is a chapter just about disappointments, like just things in our life that were like, man, I just wish that had gone better. Or one is, I just wish I had more friends, just the struggles we have as women, like desiring friendship. And I just wish I was a better mom. The guilt that we feel of like, oh, I just wish I bet she is such a better mom than me. I just wish this about my motherhood. And so honestly, once the chapters, coming up with the chapter titles was way easier than you would think, because it's like, well, where have I struggled with contentment today? Boom, 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 boom. They just kind of started to fall out. And then I had a lot of stories from my own life that just really fit into these different chapters.
And so how did you start fleshing them out? Did you frame it as a self-help book, with absolute tips and advice on how people can, approach their lives in a more positive way? Or did you just share your own personal stories from the heart?
Okay, so funny. I wanted it to be the second of what you just talked about, like, let me just share. But I really learned that in publishing, it's very important that your book has what they call a promise. Like there needs to be something that when people see it, there's something. Unless you're just like ultra famous and you can be like, hey, I'm Mick Jagger, here's my memoir. And people are like, I just want to read about his life. But for the average person, you need to like kind of tell the reader, I'm going to give you something. I'm going to walk you through this. And luckily I am a big like tenet of Naptime Kitchen is practicality. Like, how do we actually do this? And so luckily it worked out really well that I had these chapters, but I wanted to have practicals at the end of every chapter of things that I was actually doing to help me in these different areas of discontentment. And so that kind of became the book's promise, is like, I'm going to share stories and I'm going to share thoughts, but then I'm going to end with a mindset shift and some practicals that would hopefully like really like wrap it up for you, like really kind of help drive the point home. And that's really how it falls into the self-help category, is it has a real practical component.
I mean, that is a really big promise. You're actually offering to help people feel better about their lives. Did you feel nervous about that? Did you reach out for help and advice from other people to make you feel more qualified in steering people? Or again, was that something, this works for me and I'm just telling you what I'm doing?
Yeah. After I would write a chapter, I had multiple people in my life that would read it. And I would be like, do you see any holes? Is there anything you think isn't coming across well? Is there anything you would add? Sent the manuscript to people asking like, is there anything more that you see here that I'm missing? And tried to really hit people in different like phases of life of just, can you help me? I'm only one person, but also I really had to come to a place because I so desperately wanted it to reach everyone. But at the same time, it's like, if you try and reach everyone, you can almost reach no one. And so I kind of had to be like, you know what, Kate, you're writing this is your experience. And so at the end of the day, you can't speak to someone who might be in some situation that you've never been in. So I kind of had to own, this is my story. And I hope that it gets into the right hands and it helps people wherever they are.
And you seem to be pretty in tune with yourself, with people that are following your socials as well. You're finding connection there. Are you able to share with us, if you don't mind, so a bit of a story that is in the book, and then those sort of self-help tips that you actually put in there?
Yeah. So we'll just take the opening chapter, the I just wish I had a bigger kitchen chapter. So, that one, it's not just about the kitchen, it's about the home. And a few years ago, there was this big moment where I was looking through old photos, and I had photos from when we were living in our rental apartment. I had photos from when we were living in our rental house. And I realized that every photo I looked at, all I really noticed was like the people in the photos. I didn't notice like, oh my gosh, our bathroom had like butter yellow tile, or man, our lighting was so bad in our living room. Like those things kind of faded away. And it was actually the people in the photos were what I cared about. And it really got me thinking about how our homes are really meant to quite literally house the people that live there. And they're really more of like a moving and changing thing. And I think a lot of the times we want to think like, I'm going to design this room like this. It's going to stay that way forever. But really, as our lives change, our homes should reflect what's needed in that season. And so, like when you have really little kids, you probably have a bottle dryer in the kitchen, and you have a changing table, and you have all of these things. And then as your kids get older, you get rid of those things, and you get snack drawers for all the extra snacks you're going to need for your like teenagers. Like your home changes based on what you need out of it. And when I started to see my home, and a phrase I use a lot is your home is a tool. Like your home is something that's meant to serve you versus you serving your home, which would mean like, oh, I'm always straightening the pillows, and I'm always cleaning everything up, and I'm always wanting my house to be perfect. That's like you serving your home versus creating a home that bolsters whatever you need, like a place for your coats to hang and a place for the lacrosse gear. If your child plays a sport, like whatever it is, that mindset shift was huge for me. Instead of looking at how can I make this room look so beautiful and, like a magazine, versus how can this room best serve my family? Like, what do we need out of it?
Yeah.
So that was like the mindset shift for that chapter, is like your home is a tool meant to serve you.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And in the process of writing this book, did you have your own thoughts cemented, or did you have any of your own perceptions completely changed around?
Yes. Great question. It's funny. I start the book by saying like, I want you to read this and know this is in no way a memoir. This is very much like a working journal of things that I'm just truly just fleshing out along with you. Like I'm still processing it. I kind of wonder if in 5 years I'll look back and have changed my mind on things and be like, well, they're printed. That's, but that was the season that I was in. But there are so many things that I think I'm still fleshing out in real time. Like my kids are 10 and under. And so even in the Good Mom chapter, I can't speak to how that will look different or what that will feel like when I have teenagers, or, even when they're older. And then there's a chapter called I Just Wish I Had a Better Husband. And that was a very popular, like, I think people were just like, what? I can't believe she would say that. But I do think it's an area where so many people like struggle with like, this person posted a photo of their husband giving them flowers, and my husband doesn't give me flowers. I wish my husband gave me flowers. Or, they go on a date night every week. Gosh, I wish we went on a date night every week. I wish he was more thoughtful. Like it's a pretty easy area to struggle with contentment. And it was funny because I really wrote that. It was one of my most enjoyable chapters to write, and one that I know that doesn't that sound funny, but I think I was really fleshing out a lot of like things that I feel are true about marriage, and just how you marry a whole person. You marry someone in their highs and in their flaws, and they marry you in that. Like my husband marries me in the best of me and the worst of me, and like how you really get to love each other in your low moments. And so a lot of like thinking through that, I think was really good for my own marriage, honestly, of just like, man, there's so much good in working with another person and loving them and forgiving them and asking for forgiveness, and just like, it's really just like a super deep friendship that you have to work on. And so that was one that I think when I started writing, I was like, I wonder where this is going to go exactly. And then as I finished, I was like, man, I really love some of the concepts that have like solidified as I was writing.
Yeah. And just finally then, you say it's sort of like a working journal.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else up your sleeve that you're going to be putting out for us?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's so funny. I joke that, they say writing a book is like having a baby. And I feel like it's when people have asked me that, I feel like I'm like still in the hospital holding my newborn. And I'm like, how dare you ask me if I'm going to have another? I love writing. And I think that the time it took to write the book was really grueling, but I also love that slower format of consumption where online, even if you're just reading an article online, it's like a tab open on your screen and ads pop up and you hope you don't close out of the tab and like all of the things. But a book just feels so much more like, hey, take a deep breath, put it down when you need to. It's not going anywhere. And I'm very attracted to that form of communicating with people that just, I think, invites them to think about something slower in a world that's moving really fast. So I don't have anything up my sleeve yet. I'm kind of excited to take a little break, but I do think that I have fallen in love with this form of talking to people.
Well, it definitely sounds like people should get their hands on your book then. If you're not promising them the whole wide world, then this is the one to definitely get straight away. It's by Kate Strickler and it's called I Just Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen and Other Lies I Think Will Make Me Happy. You can find it on Amazon or, of course, the Talk Radio Europe bookshop. Kate, thanks for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.